I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard, and you're watching The Pipeline. Today is February 9th, 2022. I'm joined as usual today by Western Standard news editor Dave Naylor. Dave, are your fingertips bleeding yet?
You know, it's just nice to get away from my desk, even if it's just for a few minutes to spend with you.
Oh, that really warms my heart, Dave.
I know.
Well, thanks.
Welcome.
Little less pleasantly, also joined by Western Standard assistant opinion and broadcast editor and host of Triggered, Cory Morgan.
Always a pleasure to get a chance to get in front of the camera again.
Not enough for you, eh?
No, never enough.
Not enough. Okay. Well, we've got a great show today. Vaccine passports ending, or actually technically have ended in Alberta. I believe scheduled to end in Saskatchewan. So we're going to discuss the reopening plans in both Alberta and Saskatchewan for premiers Kenney and Moe, respectively. Not very fast, I'd say, on at least some of these fronts. Far too fast for any of the unions. They think grade 2 kids not wearing masks is going to kill everyone. So we're going to get into that as well. The Freedom Truckers, I think that's just broadly what we can call them, because there's the Freedom Convoy, and then there's these blockades and stuff everywhere. We'll just call them Freedom Truckers in general, even though there's now farmers and all sorts of big, heavy equipment everywhere. No end in sight. Reopening plans in Alberta, and Saskatchewan, not aggressive enough for many of the protesters, and absolutely nothing coming from Ottawa that would signal even an openness to consider reopening there. So it seems like there's no end in sight. We're going to get into there, what the police reaction has been, what the political reaction has been, and what do the Freedom Truckers plan on doing as this appears to be becoming a war of attrition. So before we get started, though, I want to, of course, thank all of our Western Standard members for your continued support. Without you, we couldn't do any of this. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, please go to westernstandardonline.com/membership. You can try it free for 15 days. It's only $10 a month or $99 a year, and you're going to get complete unlimited access to all Western Standard content. The Western Standard is independent and government bailout free. We are one of a very small handful of media outlets in Canada that refuse to be bought and bribed by the federal government and their bailout subsidy. We don't take that money, so we need people to step up and support independent journalism, independent media, and that's what we're trying to do here for Westerners. But we got to pay the bill, so of course we need to acknowledge one of today's sponsors, Algodex. Algodex is owned by Algonaut. This is great new technology just coming online now in the digital currency world. Algodex is a great way for you to use the digital currency Algorand in your day-to-day transactions. Can you imagine a world where we don't have to buy a cup of coffee using the federal dollar, and you don't even have to use the American federal dollar? You don't have to use the euro or the pound sterling. You can use real money, digital currencies that are not at the beck and call of governments and inflation. The Algodex is making digital currencies usable in a day-to-day basis. Well, speaking of buying a cup of coffee, we need to acknowledge newest swag around the office, Western Standard mugs. Right now, they're really just for the staff around here, but Cory is insisting, I think quite rightfully, we're going to have to set up some promotions and contests so that all of you can enjoy your definitely coffee. We would never drink anything but coffee or water on the air. Never.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't do that.
No, wouldn't do that.
No, we wouldn't do that. So you can drink your coffee or water out of a beautiful red and white Western Standard mug. They just came in today.
It's got a nice heft to them. Good heavyweight. You will be the envy of the office. One of these suckers.
Oh yeah, and then if anyone ever breaks in the office, these are weaponizable.
Yeah,
you can defend yourself with these.
Baseball hats next?
Yeah, I guess. We got jackets, pens. These. I guess we're gonna need some baseball caps.
You should set up a store.
Make the West great again.
Yes, exactly.
Red hats. There we go. A store. Actually, a store is coming, but we don't have enough details to announce it yet. But it's coming. We got big changes happening at the Western Standard. Vax passes ending in Alberta and Saskatchewan. No sign of the federal vax pass coming to an end, and not as word around the rest of the country, but not quite happening yet. Dave, run us through Alberta, then Saskatchewan. maybe set the table then on the rest of the country at federal.
Sure, you got 20 minutes? Premier Kenney last night got rid of the vax passport effective at midnight Wednesday. People have been wanting this for forever. Pubs and restaurants, small venues don't have to have proofs of vaccination anymore. He said businesses can keep it, and certainly some in Calgary have already announced that they are going to keep it. And the big change coming on Monday is no masking for kids at school. If things continue to trend in the right direction and there's no upward pressure on the healthcare system, then on March 1st, there's other restrictions that are coming down. The Saddle Dome and Rogers up in Edmonton will be able to have full capacity games again. What else, Corey, is coming in on March 1st?
The late closures, I think, for bars and restaurants.
Yeah, late closures and bars and restaurants.
The government was stopping COVID from transmitting after 10 or 11 or whatever.
The 11 o'clock, yeah.
But now COVID will transmit after 11. That's
All the
what
way,
Rachel Notley said, right?
all the way till 2 a.m.
Yeah, so then COVID can transmit after 11. This is bad.
I owned a bar for years, and I do understand that a lot of diseases get transmitted after midnight, particularly when there's been a lot of stuff served. But it wasn't COVID going around, and no regulation is going to stop that.
Yeah.
If you wear a condom, you can't get COVID.
Over your face, maybe.
Yeah. Well, with face condoms is what you're supposed to wear now.
Yes.
It's a prophylactic.
Yeah.
Most of the restrictions will be lifted on March 1st, except for those affecting hospitals, Derek. Those protocols will remain in place until further notice. They're going to have to see more of a decline and whatnot in those. Our neighbors, Saskatchewan, similar sort of plan. They start on Monday. Premier Scott Moe announced this week that their vax passport ends on Monday. Ontario, interestingly, came out today and said, no, we are not going to reduce any restrictions. We're going to stay the course. We're not going to follow in Alberta and Saskatchewan's lead. And even though provinces are starting to lift restrictions, no sign from Prime Minister Trudeau that he is anywhere near lifting the restrictions. And we'll talk about what that's doing to truckers and our nation's capital a bit later.
Yeah, so in the Alberta case, it seems that vaccine passport discrimination is going to be allowed to continue privately. I've got a weird libertarian view on discrimination, that you should be allowed to discriminate for any grounds. If I don't want to hire Corey if he had green hair, well, I should have a right to. I'm just an asshole and I should pay the consequences of that. But private sector discrimination, well, it shouldn't be aided and abetted by the government. The government's continuing with the QR code here. So the government is still supporting private discrimination here. I think in the absence of a QR code, if a private business wanted to say, no, we're going to require a vaccine passport to get in, well, it'd be fine. But I don't think the government should be providing the vaccine passport, which is a tool of that discrimination.
Yeah, somewhat. I guess it's already there, and it's talking about at least the choice is at the door. The person doesn't have to, if they say we demand to see your vaccination status, the prospective customer can say, no, kiss my butt and turn around and leave. They're not forced to. They can go to another. As you said, I'm kind of mixed on the government facilitating, but it's going to be funny to watch. I mean, I've looked, there's a couple of virtue signaling hipster style businesses saying we're going to do it because we've got demands and more customers will come. Yeah, right. We see that sort of thing when they say that we're going to end tipping or we're going to pay a living wage at our restaurant and things like that. Hipsters don't spend. These guys will back off on that virtue signaling fast because you got 15% of your customer base who cannot come in even if they wanted to. Yeah. And most restaurants and bars are thrilled to regain that because they're desperate right now.
Well, especially in parts of the province, primarily outside the two big cities where vaccination rates are lower. A lot of people just have phony baloney vaccine passports, which I'm fine with. There's nothing wrong about deceiving a deceitful and authoritarian government. But what's going to happen now is the ball is going to be in the court of business owners. And I would despite what someone like a place like the Calgary Chamber of Commerce says, there is a very good reason the Western Standard, despite being headquartered in Calgary, is not a member of the Calgary Chamber of Commerce. They're absolutely terrible. They go way beyond business stuff. They're activists. You'd think it was run by a bunch of socialists, but it's apparently representing businesses. That's why the Western Standard is, in fact, a member of the Strathmore Chamber of Commerce, the big city of Strathmore.
And I did write a column about that today, actually. If you go to westernstandardonline.com, you will see it. And I did include the fact that, yes, the standard, a business organization, advocacy, getting together, networking is important. But the Calgary Economic Chamber is a joke. And
that's why we opted out.
I explained why. And I explained why the standard's not part of it.
Yeah. In fairness, they do have to keep a QR code for airline travel. Right, there's not you got to have that code to get on an airplane in Canada.
Actually, I would say we don't. We should then put the ball in Ottawa's court and say, why are you banning Albertans from flying? Then you have a constitutional issue.
But in the meantime, for travelers who need it, we don't want to put our citizens through more headache.
We should put that ball in Ottawa's court. We should have absolutely nothing to do, I think, in facilitating this. If Ottawa then wants to start its own QR code, well, fine, but that's funny because they don't have access to the healthcare records because they're not allowed to because they have no control over healthcare.
You can't ground citizens for an extended period.
Ottawa would be grounding the citizens. No, you put the ball in Ottawa's court.
Sure, but they're still grounded no matter who did it.
Yeah, so don't let Alberta be facilitating this kind of discrimination. If we're going to have vaccine passports, because remember, many Albertans are grounded because they don't have vaccine passports. They're already grounded. So you put the ball in Ottawa's court. Let them explain why Albertans can't fly. Let them explain why Albertans aren't allowed to get on a boat in a port.
Or at least start the battle of pushing back and saying, but yeah, for now, you don't want to without notice. He had to throw a bone. He did it quickly. He did it faster than I expected. At least, he's obviously trying to stretch it out. It's just like you don't let the kids open every gift on Christmas Eve. You want to maybe spread those things out a bit.
Hanukkah.
Or Hanukkah. You could really spread it out a while. Dreidel. But with this, here's your gift. The vax passports are gone like right now. Monday, kids are losing the mess. He's stretching it out. And
do you think it's going to be enough to decrease the political internal crisis he's in, Derek?
So that's what I want to talk about now. It was quite strange seeing Kenney use the rhetoric of his anti-lockdown, anti-forced masking and vaccination opponents, largely. That this is damaging. It's not doing anything. That these are incredible social costs. These are incredible costs to our liberties. He was talking the way we talk, except he was talking about his own policies. He was almost trying to co-opt his critics and saying, yeah, these things are bad. We're going after it. So it was quite bizarre. He's using language that he decries as deplorable on Monday, but as soon as he agrees with it, it's fine on Tuesday. Corey, he's adopted some of the rhetoric here, but this is rhetoric slamming his own policies that he himself imposed. These were his choices to enact. Do you think this is going to ease up some of the political pressure on?
No, he can't win. He's trying, but I just can't see it. He's getting it from both sides now. The people who want full opening want it opened. The crazed left want us to remain locked in our homes, and no matter what compromise he tries, they're going to be on him, and it won't translate to support. I'm giving the thumbs up for some of the stuff he's done, but it reminds me of that Homer Simpson meme you always see where he's got the chef's hat and everything. All he did is pour a little bit of milk on some cereal or something, and it just blows up into flames. Like nothing poor Kenney can do.
Well, even if he'd say completely opened up today, and went whole hog, right on, stroke of midnight, everything 100% is gone. Is there enough forgiveness, though, for him from the people who, generally that at least formally made up the base of the UCP? But they forgive him if he went whole hog.
No, not a chance. What do we have? 26 writing constituencies.
His day of judgment's too close to get to.
They're not going to change their minds. They were upset with him before these. The latest restrictions came down, but
we've got a political cartoon up that went up just I think the day before Kenney announced his plan for reopening, and it's kind of a take on the old Charlie Brown with the football being pulled away, and it's Kenney. It's a picture of Kenney holding the football that says freedom, because he's open and he's closed and he's open and he's closed. Maybe this is the last time we reopen and we're open for good, but we've heard open for summer, open forever, open for good. We've heard this on and on and on. And every time it's temporary.
And he said last night that, hey, these could come back if things start trending the other way. I'll bring them back.
He's at least coached it that much. He has learned a little from burning. When he opened for good last summer, it was for good. It was never going to lock down again. It was never. Mm-hmm. This time he is throwing a few caveats in there carefully for himself, so he has learned. But again, is it enough to save him? No, I don't think so.
Sorry, Corey. I was talking to a radio station in Mississauga this afternoon, and the host and I were talking. We decided Aaron O'Toole was the biggest flip-flop artist in Canadian politics, followed by Kenney. And now O'Toole doesn't matter. So Kenney currently takes the crown.
Everyone's the best at something.
Everyone's the best at something.
All right, so I'd say Moe's probably in a similar case, but I think there's less of an organized opposition against Premier Moe's leadership, both within his party and outside of it.
Yeah.
Kenney, every time he's reopened, he's been forced to. The last time, in the lead up to open for summer, we had the rogue rodeos breaking out, pretty big protests growing, and he was angry because he was seen, I think rightfully, to be dragged to reopening, kicking and screaming. He wanted to be able to announce this as his personal triumph, that he's the freedom fighter, not that he's being dragged there and he actually doesn't want to be. I think it's the same thing again. Without the blockade in Coutts, without the freedom convoy to Ottawa, I don't think this would be happening, but he has at least partially and significantly caved to pressure here. But Trudeau's a different matter, because none of these people are probably Trudeau voters. Kenney needs these people to keep his leadership, and then after that, he needs them to keep the premiership. Trudeau doesn't need any of these people, and Trudeau's rhetoric has been decidedly confrontational, if not
one-sided.
Yeah. And so the argument's being made, and I don't think this is an argument to end whatever's happening in Ottawa. I think they should end it on their own terms for maybe other reasons. But the argument's being made, and I think there might be something to it, that Trudeau will never reopen as long as they're there, because he hates them. He hates everything they stand for. And they're a good thing for his base to point to his base and say, I'm against these guys, because they're all racist, fascist, misogynists. Add in all the ists and isms you'd like.
Don't forget Nazis
and Confederates. I'd like your take on this, Corey. Do you think actually that the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa, and whatever it's morphed into now, the camp around Ottawa, do you think there's any chance that Trudeau ever reopens as long as they're there?
Probably not. But I mean, both sides need an exit strategy here. I worry about, is it building pressure? That's the thing. And I think, having that member come out of Trudeau's own caucus, it's rare. I mean, those Liberals stay tight typically.
It was actually just a second.
There was another one,
there we go.
Robillard from Quebec.
So I think, if anything, Justin is so intractable and almost, in my view, a little bit insane. On a point of pride, he might keep hanging on. But if you could just show a little bit of just respect and receptive to talking even. And the same with the ones on the ground. You can't say that we demand the end of the government, we demand Trudeau to step down or any of that garbage.
Yeah, it's not happening.
And just show that there's an end game. Show there's a plan. Show there's a way out. Even if you aren't moving towards it, accept that. But right now, both sides are entrenched. And it's just, I'm fearful, actually. It's a recipe for a big problem soon.
Our James Finkbinder spent a week down at the Coutts border.
A week and a half.
And he got some terrific photos, which we put up today. They're in there for the long haul. They got enough toilet paper to last a year down there. And James has got a nice photo spread on the website today. Just all the different stocks and stores and gasoline and propane that they've got down there. So it could go on for a long time.
I've actually kind of jumped ahead because these things are so related. Our next segment was going to be, there's no end in sight for this. Where is this going to go? So we're going to transition to that. But first, we just have to acknowledge another one of our great sponsors, the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. The Canadian Shooting Sports Association is a great organization I've been a part of for well over a decade. These guys are fighting for your right to own, use, and buy responsibly firearms in Canada. You've got 4 parties in Parliament that hate guns, and one party that's kind of divided on guns between loves guns and quietly ashamed of guns. And so it's important to have powerful groups like this, not just lobbying the politicians, because the politicians don't always listen. They're doing advocacy. They're out there changing hearts and minds, because at the end of the day, the politicians will follow where the votes are, proposing reasonable gun legislation and regulations, and launching legal challenges. These guys, I remember when Trudeau announced the big sweeping gun ban a year and a half roughly ago, these guys exposed that Trudeau had accidentally banned duck hunting shotguns, and they we're going through this. I remember I was sitting at home, and I measured the bore of my my own 12 gauge. I've got a 12, I was actually shooting out clays just this weekend, and I remember I measured this thing, and I kept on looking at the regulations that the CSSA provided, and I was like, my very simple, basic duck hunting gun is now illegal. And it was their advocacy that essentially had the Liberal government flip-flop on that. I don't think the Liberals intended to ban regular duck hunting shotguns, but they did ban them on paper. On paper, they are still technically banned. But these guys do great work. All firearms owners in Canada owe them a real debt of gratitude. And even if you're not a gun owner, supporting the right of others to responsibly own, use, and buy firearms in Canada is an important value. So check them out. Their URL. You know the URL.
CSSA-CILA.org. And if you just search them, Canada Shooting Sports Association, too, they come out pretty quick.
Yeah, I think that's got to be a bilingual URL.
I think that must be what the CILA is.
Do we
I refuse to know enough French to know what that might be.
Do we know what Western Standard is in French?
It's,
We can
probably
figure it
it's a
out.
four-letter
No.
word to them.
Migo, do you speak French? No?
No.
All right.
So did you hit anything on the weekend? Were you able to hit one?
I murdered a lot of clays.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Actually, I wasn't very good. I'm pretty rusty. I was kind of ashamed.
I might be going up this weekend. I went up by Crossfield for that.
Oh, Silver Willow.
Yes.
We got to get them as a sponsor. I love shooting at Silver. Oh,
I'll drop a card
While
at the
you're
front,
out there, well, yeah.
because that trap shooting, that doing that circuit and everything, that's a riot. A friend of mine,
Yeah.
Jamie, took me out doing that kind of a few months ago, and boy, what a good time that is.
I want you to take this clip we're making right now
Okay.
and show them. I want Silver Willow as a sponsor. I love it's golfing with a shotgun.
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
18 stops. They're all different. And I hate golfing, but I love shotguns. I went there for my bachelor party. It's great.
Oh, it's a good time. Shoulder was sore for a few days after. That's a lot of shots in one round. But
I made the mistake of I've been talking about shotguns for a long time here now, but I made the mistake. I had just a big giant bag of random shotgun shells, and
like two shot.
Yeah, so it wasn't just the little clay shooters, which are not, they don't hurt at all. This bag, turns out 2/3 of it was 3.5-inch high powder steel shot for geese, and you can't see, but my shoulder is black, and I do not bruise easily. You could punch me in the face right now, not an invitation, but you could punch me in the face. I probably won't bruise. I've got like a black shoulder because I probably fired 100 3.5-inch steel shot. Okay, back to we're charging you for that, by the way, Silver Willow. You haven't signed on as an as a sponsor yet, but we're sending you a bill for that one.
Bill is in the mail.
Yeah. Okay. So we already kind of got into this a bit. There is no end in sight, though, for the Freedom Truckers. They're hunkered in. Dave, tell us about the situation in Ottawa, Coutts, and Windsor, and several others.
Windsor. No, yeah. Let's start with Ottawa. Police say there's 400 truckers, sort of in the downtown area. That's a lot of semis. They're now concerned about the children. They say a quarter of those 400 have children living in them. They're concerned about sanitary conditions, and they're going to go down and check it out. Ottawa police say they're not going to seize any children, but holy cow, could you imagine if they did? That would send a.
I have a feeling that might not go down peacefully.
No, it would not go down. It would not go down well. So there's no negotiations going on with the feds. They are just encamped, much like their colleagues in Coutts. Now, the RCMP held a press conference this afternoon and said enforcement is imminent. Now, take that what you want.
Sorry, for Coutts?
For Coutts.
Okay.
Enforcement is imminent. Now, take that what you want, because from the RCMP, it could mean anything from going to hand a traffic ticket to sending in the SWAT team.
Well, they
and
said
hauling them all
enforcement was
away.
underway before, and we were providing live video of that.
Yeah,
and
they kind
they
of
were-
really didn't do much.
Well, it fizzled out. I think one was while we were filming it live. I didn't think
Yes.
they were expecting us to be there. We had huge viewership for it. Secondly, as they were trying to come in, looks like enforcement was underway of some kind. I think they were trying to clear it. All of a sudden, tons of farmers' tractors blew the barricades and started flying down the ditches, flying Alberta and
It's
Canadian
got to be
flags.
embarrassing to the RCMP when a John Deere blows right by.
Derek, what training have you got, though? I mean, how do you stop that?
How do you deal with Well, these aren't like a bunch of
your
violent.
standard thing. Yeah, you don't want to shoot at.
Well, they're also not the
just
typical
farmers,
violent. And most lefty protesters, let's be clear, are not violent. might disagree with what they're doing. Most of them aren't violent, but there tends to be a significantly larger violent subsection of them. There's been no violent subsections of any of these protests. So, you know, I mean, people who are unarmed, who have not committed any acts of assault or aggression, it's really hard to justify sending in tear gas and bludgeons.
Those tractors went around the police barricade. They had the power and ability to push right through.
That would have been a bad idea.
It would have been a terrible idea. It would have been good video, but bad idea.
On to Windsor, which may be the most economically problematic place. Monday evening, they completely shut down the Ambassador Bridge over to Michigan, Detroit.
They completely shut it down?
They completely shut it down. By Tuesday morning, they had opened up one lane. You know, all the rigs were parked on the side as one lane goes open. Traffic chaos. The police are telling truckers to go on a 200-kilometer detour to get into the States. It's normally a 4-minute wait at the Ambassador Bridge. But this is a bridge that brings in 17% of all the imported goods into Canada. A huge figure. I think I read somewhere today, $170 billion worth of goods come across that bridge.
Unless I'm mistaken, more trade crosses that bridge than any other port of entry on the planet. It's the single busiest trade bridge in the world.
10,000 trucks a day go over that bridge normally. That's just huge traffic. So I think that's probably the government's biggest headache right now, how to get those trucks out of there so full flow can resume normally.
Mm-hmm. Everywhere it seems that they're packing in. I can't say in Windsor if they built camps the way they have, but in Coutts, in Ottawa, these guys are packed in. They're ready. Like, they're not just a bunch of dirty hippies squatting in a park. These guys have brought fuel, food, bouncy castles, and saunas. I mean,
and there's only so much resources. I mean, the police did their thing with Ottawa and a big announcement about it when they spent the night trying to interdict and stop some gas and diesel coming in. But they also said at the same time, we've only got so many officers. They've been working 7 days a week. We can't keep up with this. And I saw a video that somebody else put out, and it showed that they took a whole bunch of protesters, and half of them had like empty jerry cans, but they were all walking all at once towards it.
Yeah.
You don't know which ones actually have the stuff and which don't. You don't have the resources to stop them all.
Yeah, apparently they're telling police that it's water.
Yeah.
Well, some of them were. Some of the jerry cans are water. Some of them are empty, and some of them are surely gasoline or diesel. And are the police going to just start arresting people for carrying empty jerry cans?
How much time do you have to try and store it? When you see the little old lady with 2 jerry cans walking along, you know she's probably empty. You never know. Don't underestimate those old biddies sometimes.
I would make you put the diesel on her because you really don't want to. You don't want to arrest Oma. She'll kick your ass. That's bad DV.
That's true.
The other problem the RCMP have, okay, so they go in and arrest these truckers, haul them out. They don't have a tow truck to move these things.
No.
There's not a tow truck company in southern Alberta that wants to deal with this. We call them all, and the same in Ottawa. You know, so all right, let's arrest the truckers, but you still got 40, 50 trucks blocking the border. How do you get rid of them?
And where are you going to put them? That's another thing. I mean, how big a holding facility do they have?
Well, I'm sure they could put them into a field somewhere. Like, the holding facility is probably not the biggest issue. It's you can't. If a trucker does not want his truck moved, that truck is extremely difficult to move. What they would probably need to do if they want to clear Ottawa is they're going to have to tear gas people. They're going to have to beat them up and drive them out in a place full of kids, and people who have not committed any acts of violence themselves yet. Even if you agree or disagree with their actions, and I know some people who support what they're doing but don't think it's the right way to do it at this point. They should go home, whatever. But it would be extraordinarily violent to just clear them out. But even if you clear them out, you're going to need probably big cranes, and you're going to need to pick these things up and put them on massive flatbeds. It would take them at least a week to clear them out.
It'd be a mess. And so again, that's what I mean. Everything's so intractable. Somebody's got to start at least talking. Be respectful. I'm sure some of them are getting tired sitting in those barricades. They're settling in and everything. I'm sure some of them are just saying, "Look, I want an out. If I can see some progress, I'll fire this thing up and drive out. I think I made my point." But again, as long as Prime Minister Hammerhead's in there, won't even touch the issue, if only when he pop his head up to insult them and inflame them even further. They're entrenched. So it's both sides.
I think certainly in Coutts, you're down to the hardcore. Those who wanted to make their point on the weekend, stayed overnight, they've all gone home. The people that are down there now are there for the long haul. They're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. They're there to stay.
Yeah. And then we've seen like tons of cowboys come in and look like the cavalry came in for reinforcements.
Celebration last week. It was like a carnival.
It looked fun. I was a bit envious of James down there. But he was in Coutts for a week and a half. That's tough.
That's long
With all
enough.
that wind, I was thinking why they need the toilet paper supplies. I used to survey down there. I mean, you go outside, you let go of that paper, it's gone to Saskatchewan in a heartbeat.
Okay, we're going to cut Cory off before he gets any more graphic about his experiences.
Well, I wasn't going to tell you what you do with sweetgrass and that.
Okay. Well, that's an excellent point in which to cut it off, because I could just tell Cory is going to say something that's going to get us canceled.
Good outdoor living tips from an experienced surveyor.
Okay, well, you've heard Cory Morgan's newest show coming up, Adventure Forest Living with Cory Morgan. Okay, well, Dave, Cory, thank you very much for joining me today. And thank all of you for following us this long. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, go to westernstandardonline.com. Try it out. You can try it free for 15 days. It's only $10 a month or $99 a year for unlimited access to Western bailout-free media with the Western Standard. I've had fun. Boy, we're busy around here.
Oh, man. Do I have to go back to work now?
Yes.
Oh.
Absolutely. No, go home. It's late. All right. Thank you very much, and God bless. Algodex is owned by Algonaut. This is great new technology just coming online now in the digital currency world. Algodex is a great way for you to use the digital currency Algorand in your day-to-day transactions. Can you imagine a world where we don't have to buy a cup of coffee using the federal dollar, and you don't even have to use the American federal dollar? You don't have to use the euro or the pound sterling. You can use real money, digital currencies that are not at the beck and call of governments and inflation. The Algodex is making digital currencies usable in a day-to-day basis.